welcome to another episode of Ctrl Alt Speak, the podcast from Bespoke Computing. For those of you that don't know my voice or see my face if we're publishing the video, I am Chris Pallett from Bespoke Computing, and today I am joined by the amazing Karen Turner from Imagine Training. Hi Karen, how are you?
Hi Chris, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Oh God, I don't know how long you and I have known and been working with each other, but for the benefit of the listeners that might not be familiar with Imagine Training, you know, how do you describe yourself? If you're meeting your friends on the pub, hi Karen, what do you do?
Oh well, I always lie and say something funny, because it doesn't sound very interesting, does it, to say that you work in IT? I think that's perceived as being quite boring, but us geeks, we love it. I teach people, this is what I do, and obviously there's a lot more to my job than that, but at heart that's what I am. I'm a teacher, so I spend my life explaining how things work to people and trying to work out for them what's the best way for them to do something. So it's not dissimilar to your own job. You know, you're also looking at solutions for people. Maybe you provide them more than explain them, but I actually break things down for people and talk to them about, you know, how they're going to get around it step by step themselves rather than do it for them.
I think even with what we do, Karen, it's not so much doing it for them. We still have to put that time and that effort into understanding what people are trying to achieve. And I know even down to some of the conversations you and I have had about your stuff, about the best ways to make. And I mean, you're obviously teaching and preaching on the good stuff that is Microsoft products, but even still, in terms of engineering your own systems to run your business, those conversations still need to be had. And
absolutely,
I think it's almost saying, actually, we don't work in IT. Well, we do work in IT, but we don't work in IT. We're communicators. We are trying to figure out how people tick, how they think, how they, in your case, how they learn, how to interact with people, to then figure out what is it that they're trying to do. And ultimately, and this is one of the things that I love about my job, is I get to understand what people's businesses are about and how the business owners want their businesses to work, so that then I can say, okay, well, if we approach it like this, this and this, we can get you some technology, and then Karen, show them how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? Another way I answer that question is I think I'm a change management consultant, because people often need to change their processes, and what I do is I save them time. So I can always work out a quicker way for them to do things that they do often every day. And I actually had somebody who was working in a company as an improvement manager, did me a lovely little video testimonial. He checked what the productivity result was of my training for 2 levels of Excel courses, and I saved people 30 minutes a day.
Blimey.
I know.
How big was the team?
Well, it was he did the study over all the people in their company who'd done both level 1 and level 2 Excel. Yeah. And they were people who used Excel a lot. So I'm not saying that would be true of everybody, because some people only tinker with it. But people who use it all day, they're just stunned when they come into a lesson and they find that there's a quicker way of doing it that can save them 3, 4, 5 clicks. And that adds up. And it literally confirmed what we thought. We thought that was probably the case, but 30 minutes a day is massive, isn't it? It's 2.5 hours a week, everybody who's trained. But that's ongoing forever. And you get a lot of frustration comes out in people. It's not unknown for people to swear in my classes. And I said, oh, you're right. And what's annoyed them is they've just discovered that last week they spent the whole week doing something that I could show them to do in 5 minutes. And that just drives them crazy. But at least we get them sorted. I apologise for showing them something decent, but
yeah, I was in visiting a customer a few years back, and her name escapes me, but she was a digital marketer, and she'd never done a pivot table.
Oh wow!
She'd never done a pivot table, and pulled up Excel, whacked a few rows of data in, clicked on pivot, dragged and dropped, and I'm like, well, have you ever not considered anything like this? And honestly, face dropped.
It's amazing, isn't it? And the thing is, there's so many different skill levels out there. Something I'm really, really aware of. So I try to group people so that they come into the right level of course. And sometimes it ends up being a little bit of an argument with some companies, because they want to skip levels, because they say, oh, somebody's been using this program for years. they don't need to start on level 1. And I go, well, let's just do this little quiz with them and see if they can do it, and then I can prove it to them, because if they can't do it, they need training on that level. You know, and you've given me a perfect sort of subject there with pivot tables, because some people won't know they exist. Some people would never use them. Other people will find them so useful it will transform the way they work. And then some people who've been using them for years will be amazed to see that we can now start to combine different files into the same pivot table. So the business intelligence side of things is just it's exploding. People have got a lot of data out there. I remember the first person I ever taught who used every row in his spreadsheet, and he was the chief executive of a not far away from us law firm, actually. And I was quite impressed. He was the first human I'd met who did it, because I knew it was possible to do it. But there are 1,048,576 rows in a spreadsheet. Okay. Well, he filled them all, and then years later, I was teaching some data analysts, and again, this was a bit nerve-wracking because these guys are experts. That's what they do every day, and their customer was a big plumbing company, and they had to combine 100 spreadsheets which were full, and they came to me and said, "Karen, can you help with this?" And I did it. It took me a couple of hours because of the processing power needed, but I combined them. So I can tell you from personal experience, you can actually put 104 million rows into one spreadsheet.
I think this is probably quite timely, actually, to talk about spreadsheets and the number of rows. So last week before, there was obviously, for the benefit of the listeners and context, we're the end of October, so we've had 6 months of global pandemic, and then 2 weeks ago there's that revelation that somebody somewhere has been using Excel to report their statistics. Excel cock up, was it 18,000 rows gone?
16,500, and that's actually quite interesting why it's 16,500. I've got a theory about that.
Okay, well, I think I'd like to hear that theory, but I think the big thing there is the right tools for the right job.
Yes.
And if you've got 10 Excel spreadsheets and every single row is populated, why was it in Excel?
It should have been in a database. Absolutely, it should have been in a database. And it should have been a relational database, because what they were trying to do was contact tracing. So when they got one contact, they needed to have a relationship to the other people they might have been in contact with to contact them, and they needed all the contact details for all those people to fill in. It's obviously a database. It's not a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
They actually committed a crime against spreadsheets, because I think what they did was they were using an old version, a really old version, not like just the last version, but a really ancient version of Excel. And instead of putting the data down the rows, they put them across the columns. And that's why it was 16,500. That's my theory. I have discussions with people around the world about this, because I don't know if you know this, you're probably not as geeky as me, but it was actually Spreadsheet Day last Saturday.
That's very geeky, Karen. I'm not, even if I did know that, I'm not going to admit to it. And you've still got me against crimes against the spreadsheet. The Excel police are coming to get you.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, it's just, having watched the evolution of it, you know, saying it was Spreadsheet Day, this big global event happened where all the people who are interested, that deeply interested in spreadsheets, got together. And the guy who invented the very first spreadsheet, VisiCalc, was there. And I used to teach that. And there were other people there who kind of came up with other products like SuperCalc. And that's, you know, we're talking about nearly 30 years ago, these products.
Yeah, I remember SuperCalc. That was... Yeah. And oh God, what was the other one? Lotus 123 as well. 123
was after that, and then Microsoft invented Excel, and then they never really.
And Works as well. Let's not forget Works.
Yeah, Works. Microsoft Works. I used to teach that in the college. Oh my goodness, yeah. The CLAIT qualifications, because you had to do both Excel and Word. I think you had to do a bit of Access database in those days.
Yeah.
I don't even think there was email, Chris.
No, I don't think. I remember. When I first went into industry, email was a privilege. Mm-hmm. To be fair, even internet access was a privilege. Not everybody had, I mean, this is showing my age now. We had coaxial networks running IPX, SPX. Nobody had. We didn't even have TCP/IP turned on the network. Oh. And then they got the internet connection, and it was a pair of ISDN channels. So we had an ISDN connection to the internet, so what was that, 128k connection, and an entire /24, so 255 IP addresses, public IP addresses allocated to this ISDN connection, that was just crazy. And then every computer on the network was given this public internet address, so the whole office was publicly exposed to the outside world. It's like, what? You wouldn't even dream about doing that these days.
You know what, I remember the first time I had to work with a dot matrix printer in a training room, and we had wires going between everybody's computer and this dot, and we had to explain to them about it. And you think about the quality of that, how awful that was. And then we got to the stage where we started all using printers so much, and we've got laser printers and colour laser printers. Oh, the quality was great, and you didn't have to have a wire. And now we've kind of gone full circle to the stage where people are working from home, and quite a lot of the time they're not even printing stuff out. You know, they're just sending it, you know, which is the way it is at the moment. And, you know, that must be having a huge impact on the amount of paper and toner and so on that we're using, because people are just sending things and looking at them electronically. So we've got to have it looking pretty then, haven't we? We've got to have it looking great. Yeah,
absolutely. Although it's still in recent years, I'd say in the last 5-10 years, we have sold a dot matrix printer or two.
Have you?
Oh God, yeah. We've I think the last one that I sold was it was a line printer on a weighbridge for doing waste transfers. So because of running stuff through the printer in duplicate and triplicate.
Yeah. They needed that multi-layer paper, Yeah,
exactly. Whereas I guess if you were going to do that on a laser printer, you'd just print off 3 copies, wouldn't you?
Well, that's right. And I mean, that sort of thing holds back some even big global companies from upgrading sometimes. I can think of one customer of mine where they said to me, oh, no, we can't come off Office 2010 because we've got a machine on the shop floor that needs to run this program, and they haven't updated it. So we can't change our whole system. And I said to them, yes, you can. You know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that going on. I had a conversation. Do you remember when WannaCry? What was that? Must have been 3 or 4 years now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
that was North Korea. That was.
Was that the North Koreans?
Yeah. I'll tell you why I know, and that's why I'm saying it fairly certainly. I did some seminars on stage with a company called FireEye, who are cyber security experts, and
that's right.
My friend Neil. Yeah,
I was expecting you to say you were on stage with King Johnny L.
No, I was on stage with Neil, who is awesome and just as terrifying, because he said to everybody in the room, if I wanted to, I could hack into your phones now because you've all just logged on to the Wi-Fi in this building. And I went, you know, he was a very clever speaker, very off the cuff guy. And while we were waiting to talk, we were talking about the WannaCry, and he said, oh yeah, he said one of our customers is Sony, and they hacked into them because they were cross about that film that was made. Do you remember that film? And it was mocking Kim Jong-un. So he set his cyber security. Classic. Yeah, that's right. Just look out. Wear a bulletproof vest when you come out of the cinema if you go in there. Oh, God. You off. I know. Well, I mean, there's lots of people who are out there trying to get you. That's one of your pet subjects, isn't it? You know, all the different cyber security people, because you know I weave a bit of cyber security into my Excel courses. So when I'm teaching people on the second level, I start talking to them about it to make sure that we're talking about protecting the worksheets and making sure people can't deliberately or accidentally mess up their spreadsheets, and particularly their formulas and stuff like that. So I'm going through that. So I set the scene by showing them all the cyber attacks that are going on in the world and why we need to protect things, but also saying to them, let's not go mad here and lock everything up so that you can't use it. Let's not get to that state, you know. So you are the front line there with the companies, the bigger companies. You can protect them, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly the mantra that you have to take with it is so when I talk to businesses about cybersecurity, I take the view that it's a three-pronged attack with it, or the old Roman temples where you've got the pillars and then you've got the roof, and there's 3 pillars to cybersecurity. And the first one is about policies and procedures. The second, so basically laying out your rule books. Your second one is about training and education and making sure that people know what to look for, what's going on. And then only then the third one is your technical measures. So things like, have you got antivirus? Have you got web filtering? Are you doing your updates? That sort of thing. So yeah, ever so important that actually from an IT point of view, from a technical, what I do in terms of going and beating people with a stick to keep them secure, that's one third of that picture.
Yeah.
So definitely I don't think people spend enough time talking about it. I think people do need more education. What you're saying is absolutely right, is if you put too many barriers and obstacles in the way, so whether you're doing your protection on your sheets or whatever, there comes a point, if you take it too far, people won't bother, they'll lose interest, or worse than that, they'll just find a workaround, and then you're in a whole world of pain with what we call shadow IT, where people have gone and done their own things, and then suddenly little Johnny in accounts has got some unrestricted spreadsheet with a load of stuff on because the main system's too tied down, and then you have a data breach, or little Johnny leaves or something, and you're like, oh my God, what do you do?
Well, it's like, I've been mentioning this in my classes for years, and to my horror, once I discovered in the newspaper that somebody I taught had been jailed for fraud with spreadsheets, and I thought, ooh, hope it wasn't something I told her, but it wasn't. And there's a lot of there's a lot of fraud goes on, and people will do all sorts of things. So that's another thing that I've been looking into recently, because it's still a hot topic. What should you be putting into your spreadsheets as safeguards? And there's lots of tools built into Excel, for example, where you can audit the spreadsheets and you can check what people are doing, because some of the silly things they'll do, they'll even change colours on things so that when you look at it, you glance at it as a spreadsheet user, you think, oh, that's negative because it's red. Actually, it wasn't. It was just them changing the colour to make it look like it was negative, and they're hiding things. There's all sorts of stuff they get up to. But one of the funniest ones is when I say to people, who do you have to protect your spreadsheets against? Quite a large number of people in one firm said the boss. And apparently, and I can't to this day believe he could do it, but apparently he used to prowl the corridors in the evenings, and he'd go into people's offices and start using their computers and having a look at the spreadsheets and changing things. And I said, surely that's down to IT to stop them. He should be able to do that. Why has he got access to their computers? And that's crazy.
Well, having access to their computers, fair enough. Everybody should have their own username and password. The data should have been stored on a server, but
yeah. And it wasn't just one person. That was what was funny about it. It was widespread, and they all agreed with each other, because I went, surely not. You're just exaggerating. And they went, no. So we just.
Oh man, clearly he wasn't working hard enough on his own job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, would you want to go around reading other people's spreadsheets? I don't think even I would.
No, well, this always prompts for an interesting conversation when we're talking to new businesses. Now, obviously, when you're doing the IT support for an organisation, you end up with a lot of access to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we have to be quite conscious. We don't go shouting about it. We certainly, sure as hell, don't brag about it, because people get scared and twitchy. But there's that one age-old response of, if you think about how much access we've got, I have zero interest in your spreadsheet. I couldn't care less, because I haven't got the time.
Yeah, to me, I have equally huge amount of access into what people are doing, because they will show me, and I will retain it for about 5 minutes, and then it's gone, it's wiped. I regard myself as being a little bit like a doctor in that respect, that I'll help them with their problem, and then I wipe it, because my brain's not big enough to hold all their data. So I just don't care.
I can imagine those conversations.
To help
Karen,
them.
I have a problem. Can you help?
It is. I did work briefly within the NHS for a couple of years, and you've got to be incredibly careful about the sensitive information. But it wasn't even a spreadsheet that got me into trouble with that. I was running some training for the sexual health clinic, and it was just very unfortunate that the filters picked up that I'd been having to access images, which they picked up. They were for our training materials of what we were trying to show people on the software.
Yeah, I've heard of that before, Karen. That's a really That's a really hard one where you're trying to genuinely get across content where the names and some of the names of things are just so obscure.
Oh God,
not even in medicine either.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I train people in so many different sectors. It is very, very interesting. And, you have to sort of transfer your brain into whatever sector they're in, because that's the way they think. But also it's segmented a different way as well when you're training people about their job role and what they will need to know for their job. And sometimes there's a little bit of a lack of imagination about what they're going to want in the future. They only know what they want right now. And I've got to show them something to find out if it's interesting to them. So it can be pretty interesting. There are things that people could do that will really improve their productivity and make them more efficient, but they don't know it yet. So there's something called Solver in Excel where you can run multiple problems, and you've got to not just know how the solver works, but you've got to actually have a good real life example of it. So when I'm teaching that, I say to people, right, we are in the business of making widgets. So here's the widgets, that's how much they are. Now tell me, how long is it going to be? How much money can you make? What's the most money you can make out of this? And they would sit there probably weeks trying out all the computations. Well, Solver will do it. We tested it the other day, five seconds, less than that, 2 seconds in most cases. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think we might have to start getting some of my forecasting then.
Yeah, but I mean, it's lovely. I have a job where, I'm doing some Word training next week. I've got some Microsoft project training coming up. It's just, my head does explode sometimes on all the depth of things, and particularly the pace of change at the moment is huge. So every day, Microsoft's bringing out new tweaks to the software, and I'm having to get ahead of the curve and know what's coming. So I'm having to look and see what the updates are, and when they're planning to come in, and try and do a little informational video for people how to deal with that. So I did one last week on pinning emails, which is a tiny little thing, but goodness me, that isn't half going to be good. That's much more productive than flagging. Pinning the emails, yeah. So there's going to be a little pin at the top of your inbox, and you can pin individual emails to the top of the inbox instead of having to flag them and put a date on for the flag and then go filter to find the flag. You just get to stick a pin in. So they've got pins in other parts of Outlook. So you can always pin a contact, for example, somebody you're really interested in, pin them there. But this is one of the things that's just about to come out.
Okay, so I'm intrigued then, because how people use Outlook for me. Sometimes I've got some people that are really, really organised, and I've got some people that are absolute bloody nightmares. And it always tickles me when talking about mailbox quotas. And email servers, and I think probably the biggest mailbox just off the top of my head, 25-30 gig mailbox, and I don't know where to start with it, because the analogy that I use, well, it's like when you receive an email, it's like the postman's putting a letter through your letterbox. And when you've got people with 25-30 gig emails, it's like they're taking all those letters and they're just dropping them on the kitchen worktop, and they're just letting them stack up and stack up and stack up.
Do you know, my husband was like that. When I married him, he used to live in his own place over in Bangor, and when I went over there, he'd have a little pile of letters next to the letterbox. And I said to him, there might be something really important in there. You're not going to look. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll get around to it. And I said to him, I'll look for you. He got round to it because he didn't really want me poking. Yeah. So he had a good go through, and we found, for example, that he'd been ordering things like magazines that had been coming wrapped in cellophane for years. He'd never opened any of them. He was paying for those subscriptions, and it's exactly the same with email. Sometimes you're paying for stuff and you're not.
Yeah. I bet you were popular for saving him a few quid on magazine subscriptions.
He didn't want to give them up. It was really
funny. Buy me a bunch of flowers now.
Oh, I wish. No, but what the answer is with emails is to set aside some time in your diary to actually go through and set up some rules. So a lot of the things that go into junk that Microsoft sends in your junk, you've still got to look through it, haven't you, to decide what to do with them. And you can't just unsubscribe while it's in junk. You have to put it in your inbox, and they're going to get a flag to say you've opened it then. Yeah. So what I do is I just take some time and I go through it and I copy the link somewhere else to unsubscribe. And I do it that way, because I've stopped the problem then, but it's a chunk of my time, and I do resent it because I think I didn't sign up for that. why have they sent it to me? But
yeah, I think the solution there, Karen, is to have a good spam filter. Like our email runs on 365, but we also pre-filter it before it gets to the Microsoft stuff. So I'm quite glad, I'm quite fortunate, I can say I don't have much of an issue with spam. I still do get people that email me completely unsolicited, but I think we're all going to get that.
Yeah, we're going to get that. It's just the volume at the moment, isn't it? That you don't want to miss something good. And sometimes I've had things that are genuinely from customers and genuinely wanting things, and they've ended up in my junk. So I do have to monitor it. But you can categorize things as well. So you can sort of put a rule in, categorize something as being something you're going to read later, put it into a subfolder in your inbox, and then if you ever get time, you go read it. If you don't, set an archive rule on it to empty it every so often, because you've not got a long enough life to read all those emails, Chris.
No, well, you haven't at all. It's what's the thing? It's do it, delegate it, or delete it.
Correct. Yeah.
Or defer it, schedule it for another day. Yeah. So here's a sad fact for you then. If you receive a spam email, time and motion, the cost for you to look at that email, decide that it's spam, and hit delete will cost you about 2 pence.
Yeah.
2 pence per spam message.
Mm-hmm. Or you can just do Ctrl-A to select all of the emails. Hold down Shift while you hit delete, and they don't even hit your deleted items. They're gone. Sorry?
Email bankruptcy. That's what we call that.
No, I just go in, I do Ctrl-A, I have a quick glance, I don't read them, I know from who's sending them, do Ctrl-A to select all of them, hold down Shift, delete, they're gone, not just gone into the bins for me to go, oh, do I want to make a decision about this again later on? No, I made my decision, gone, that's it.
So we had a customer who he would receive his email, he would do stuff with it, he'd then press delete, it would go to the deleted items. But he would actually use deleted items as a repository for storing stuff that he might still want to go back and look at.
I've met people like that. Yeah, I know. And I get to see a lot of people, like you do, I get to see a lot of people's inboxes. And I've done a lot of rollouts of new software and things like that, where I'm going desk to desk with people in the old days. And, it is quite an interesting thing to do when you do it, because you really see how people are working and you see the difference, because there are some people out there who never have anything in their inbox. They've got it so finely tuned that they only have the current day's things that are still to do. But what I'm doing is I'm tagging something for when I'm going to do it, if I'm deferring it, or giving it a category so that I can, as I said, look at it later if I am genuinely interested but don't have time now. So I've got a lot of subfolders.
I was going to say, what does your inbox look like, Karen? How many messages you got in there?
Awful, because it's do what I say, not do what I do, Chris.
Yeah, okay. So I think I'm running at about 60 at the moment.
That's awful. I'm really impressed by that. You must be really OCD.
Generally, I think I've got something in my head. If it's been in my inbox for 2 weeks, it's never going to happen. Nothing's ever going to get done with it, which is not good. And then I just have stuff in there where it's like, actually, it's not important now, but I know in a few weeks' time it is going to be important. And I do have subfolders, and I do have and use subfolders, but just trying to remember where you've put stuff. I've got. I don't even know what day.
I've seen so much going on. I don't want to be remembering what subfolder. There's a school of thought that you put an @ in front of things to keep them up the top of the list, and to do and that kind of thing, and you just funnel things into that. If you're going to do something with it, you could try just having those 4 inbox subfolders of do, defer, delete, and whatever else you want to say, but I'd say I work on a couple of systems really, which is probably why it's not so great. And as it is at the moment, because we are obviously here, I've been teaching people all over the world, and it's not a new thing, because I used to do this. Used to work for one of the big drug companies, and I used to do massive webinars back about 8 years ago. But just recently, in the last 6 months, I've trained people in France, Germany, Belgium, USA, Peru, and this last week, South Africa.
All from the comfort of Telford.
Absolutely, from my prison cell. I mean, my lovely beach. It's amazing the reach that you've got, once people start to accept the technology, and you can form, associations with people that you would never meet face to face in real life. It'd just be too expensive, let alone pandemic wise. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I've got some good collaborations going on with other trainers, and that's always nice because you've got other people to ask if you don't know the answer.
Yeah, and that's it. We don't know what we don't know.
No, we don't. Who said that?
A guy called Keith at a networking event.
Don't take any notes of him. You're thinking of Donald Rumsfell's Known Unknowns. That's what you're thinking about.
Maybe. See, the thing is, though, Karen, on an average day, how many quotes and quips do you hear?
Not that many, really. Not that many. I mean, no, not well. Do you know what? I probably pick up more stuff like that in social media. That's probably where I go for that kind of thing. So if I've really switched off from work and I'm just meandering through social media, so either Facebook groups that I'm in or on Twitter or something like that, trying to ignore all the idiots, then I'm relaxed. Instagram, a little bit less of that kind of thing because it's more picture based, but yeah, certainly I'd say Twitter is an absolute fest of people quoting things at you. And
I can't remember the last time I looked at Twitter, Karen.
Yeah, I have got an official Twitter account for the business, but I just use it to sort of browse when I'm really bored. I'm still doing something on my tablet or on my phone. It's in my hand, and I think that's true of a lot of people. You've got some sort of device in your hand 24/7, haven't you?
I try not to, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. We went away and had a holiday in the summer because we had a week off. I had to convince my husband. I booked a shed in somebody's garden in Wales, and we sort of safely travelled there. The people social distanced when they showed us the place, and it was absolutely brilliant. It looked like the inside of a sauna, basically. It'd all been made beautifully by this guy. He built it in lockdown, and he'd put 2 walls into his shed, and he'd lined it with sheep's wool. So it was snug. He put a stove in there, had a bed, a shower, a bathroom, and a little kitchenette. It was just a little shed. It was like a TARDIS, Chris. You don't believe how big it was inside. And when you open the doors, double doors, he just put the doors in the right spot so you could look through his garden up to the mountains. And it was just a bit like Stonehenge in a way, because there was these cairns built on the top of the mountains. And he said, if you get here at sunset, he said, you'll see that the sun sets behind those cairns. So he positioned it just perfectly.
Nice.
It was idyllic. And yeah, it was just a case of a digital detox and a bit of walking, a bit of fresh air. And, I'm looking forward to going back again one day. I think I'll go back to that one. It was lovely. It was really, it wasn't plush. It wasn't high life. But it was just a bit of away from work and all the pressures of work. So, yeah, good.
One of the questions that we're asking our guests who are coming onto the podcast this season is if you could take any one piece of technology and put it into room 101.
Oh, one you want to throw away?
Yeah. Okay. Well, what would it be for you?
What would I throw away? I thought you were going to ask me what I would keep. What would I get rid of? My God, I don't know, because I love my tech, and I've got that many, techie backpacks to prove it that I can carry them all around in and be swanky when I'm going somewhere. No, I'm not giving anything up, Chris. I'll keep it. I'm building another garage to keep it all in.
Okay. Well, just remember, Karen, you can't take it with you.
I know, my daughter said to me the other day, you do realise it's going to take a lot of skips to move all your stuff when you die. What?
That's cheerful.
What?
Yeah, that's cheerful. You'd be like, yeah, thanks for that. I've got another 30 years yet.
No, I was a bit hurt. I was hurt that she would actually throw it all away. I was thinking, oh, please, come on. You'd find something useful.
I'm sure there are museums that would take it.
It's out of date after a couple of years anyway, isn't it? So, yeah.
A couple of weeks at this rate, isn't it?
Oh, it really is.
Thank you for coming to record a podcast this afternoon, Karen.
You're very welcome.
I'm really grateful. So if any of our listeners want to find out more about you and Imagine Training, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I've got a website, imaginetraining.biz, B-I-Z at the end. They can give us a call on 01952 581 550. They can drop me an email if they like, Karen at imaginetraining.biz. So loads and loads of ways of getting hold of me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely for your free backgrounds for teams or actually go and buy some training on how to use Teams and Excel. definitely go and talk to Karen. Karen, thank you very much. To everybody listening, thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe, and look forward to the next episode of Control Alt Speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you.